Manchester United will look to move 13 players on in the summer transfer window as Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS plan a big clear-out, according to reports. The Red Devils are planning to spend big again this summer, thus splashing out over £200 million on new signings last year. Manchester United concentrated on improving their forward line last summer, and will now look to sign at least 2 new midfielders, a left-back and a left winger this time around. But the Red Devils will have to cut their cloth accordingly, with a number of big-name players set to depart Old Trafford at the end of the season. The Daily Express claims that Man United could lose 13 players in the summer transfer window, with co-owners INEOS and Ratcliffe planning a brutal clear-out. If Napoli qualify for the Champions League, which they are well on course to do, that will trigger their obligation to buy Rasmus Højlund in the summer, while Barcelona are still keen to bring Marcus Rashford to the Camp Nou permanently if they can strike the right deal with Man United. As well as Rashford and Højlund, Casemiro has already announced his intention to leave Old Trafford on a free transfer at the end of the season, while Manuel Ugarte is another player who is expected to be sold. The other players named as potential departees by the Express are Jadon Sancho, Tyrell Malaysia, Andre Onana, Altay Bayindir, Radik Vitek, Tyler Fredrickson, Toby Collier and Dangor. There have been recent rumours that Onana still wants to return to Man United in order to fight for his place in Michael Carrick's team for next season. However, the Red Devils want to offload him, and Trabzonspor president Ertuğrul Dogan insists the Turkish club would like to bring the Cameroon international in permanently once his loan spell finishes. Dogan said, "Onana's career is already established. We like him. I've said this before. He has a certain plan for his career. If the conditions are right, we want him to stay. The final decision will be Onana's." Ugarte exit at Man United becoming almost guaranteed. Speaking about Ugarte's future at Old Trafford, transfer expert Fabrizio Romano recently claimed that the Uruguayan's exit is becoming almost guaranteed. Romano said, "According to my information, some movements have already started to find a solution for Manuel Ugarte. Casemiro's exit is guaranteed, and Ugarte's is also becoming almost guaranteed. So midfield signings, 1 for sure, but 100% could be 2. That is becoming in conversations internally at Man United. Manchester United fans are excited to see which new signings the club will make in the summer transfer window, but arranging sales will be just as important to clear out the squad and offset incomings. The number of departures could reach double figures this summer. Some big names will be among those who go through the exit door, including Casemiro, who will leave when his contract expires. Casemiro is the highest earner in the dressing room, meaning his exit will create headroom in the wage bill. United would also like to offload Marcus Rashford, who is currently on £300,000 per week. Barcelona have the option to sign Rashford on a permanent transfer for £26 million, €30 million after the end of the season. But the noise from Spain suggests Barca's interest in signing him has cooled. It's possible that Barcelona are not showing their hand in an attempt to negotiate a lower fee to sign Rashford permanently, so it wasn't a surprise to hear Michael Carrick leave the door open for him to return to Manchester when he spoke at a press conference last week. Asked about Rashford, he said, "I just think there are decisions to be made in time, really, on certain things, and obviously Marcus is in that situation. But at this point in time, nothing's been decided. And it will be, because it has to be at a certain point, but at this stage, there's nothing to say." Carrick could not say there was no chance of Rashford returning, because that would damage United's bargaining power this summer. The Reds will not play games with Barca, and will look for suitors elsewhere if they are not prepared to cough up. Like Rashford, Rasmus Højlund and Jadon Sancho have spent the season on loan. However, the structure of Napoli's deal for Højlund outlined that he would sign for the Italian club on a permanent transfer for €44 million, £38 million, when their obligation, which was dependent on certain conditions, is triggered. Højlund's move to Napoli has been described as a formality, which means his 3-year association with United will come to an end. United will avoid a loss on Højlund under PSL rules, which is a silver lining to his failed move. Aston Villa signed Sancho on loan on transfer deadline day. Unai Emery's side agreed to cover 80% of Sancho's wages, but the deal included achievable bonuses, meaning his full wages have essentially been covered during his stint in Birmingham this season. United received a loan fee, but there was no option or obligation to buy Sancho in the deal, meaning he will leave Old Trafford as a free agent this summer. Sancho had the world at his feet when he signed from Borussia Dortmund for £72.8 million in the summer of 2021. But his time in Manchester has been a massive disappointment. Tyrell Malaysia was in the bomb squad alongside Sancho last summer. United tried to offload the Dutch defender, but he stayed beyond the window and came close to leaving again in the January window. Malaysia was a capable backup fullback until he suffered a knee injury at the end of his first season in Manchester. He had 2 rounds of knee surgery, missed over 500 days of action, and did not return the same player. United will look to offload Andre Onana on a permanent transfer and recoup what they can of the £47.2 million they paid to sign the goalkeeper from Inter Milan in the summer of 2023. Trabzonspor's president has confirmed his club would like to sign Onana permanently after his loan in Turkey. Radik Vitek will get the chance to feature in pre-season after impressing on loan with Bristol City. However, the talented Czech goalkeeper wants to play consistently after playing 2 games per week their championship. Sen Lamans has earned first-choice status, so United may have to reluctantly sanction a sale of Vitek, provided the appropriate clauses are buyback and a sell-on clause can be agreed with Abir. It remains to be seen whether Altay Bayındır will switch clubs after another season warming the bench. The Turkish goalkeeper has been heavily linked with a move away, which would allow him to play more. There are question marks surrounding Joshua Zirkzee, who considered his future ahead of the winter window before being informed he would not be able to leave. United view Zirkzee as a valuable squad player, but the Dutchman has been frustrated by his lack of game time. Manuel Ugarte finds himself in a similar position to Zirkzee, making just 8 league starts. The Ineos regime plans to give new signings to seasons to prove themselves, and Ugarte is coming to the end of his 2nd year at the club. Needless to say, he has not been convincing. Finally, some academy graduates will depart this summer. Tyler Fredrickson is under contract for another year, but he's now 21 and could look for a permanent move to kickstart his career in the professional game. Toby Collier spent the first half of the season on loan with West Brom and has spent the second half with Hull City. There was permanent interest in Collier last summer, and he wants to play regular football. Dan Gore is out of contract this summer. Erik ten Hag handed Gore his senior debut against Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup in 2023, and he later made an appearance against Aston Villa in the Premier League. Gore was named on the bench for a handful of Champions League games, but United have loaned him out 3 times over the last 2 years, with varying success due to injuries. Dan Gore is out of contract this summer. Erik ten Hag handed Gore his senior debut against Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup in 2023, and he later made an appearance against Aston Villa in the Premier League. Gore was named on the bench for a handful of Champions League games, but United have loaned him out 3 times over the last 2 years, with varying success due to injuries. Expect plenty of transfer activity at Old Trafford this summer, but outgoings could be just as important as incomings.